Led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott, the Seneca Falls Convention of 1848 marked a revolution in women's rights by publicly declaring gender equality through the Declaration of Sentiments. Despite facing intense social and political backlash, these reactions strengthened the movement and influenced lasting reforms. The Seneca Falls Convention officially initiated the women's suffrage movement.
In the 1830s, women's rights reforms had already begun for the right for women to speak out about moral and political issues. The Second Great Awakening encouraged many women to question their unequal status and establish their own ideas about their importance in society, since they already gained organizational experience from the awakening. Married women were prohibited from owning property, leading to legal reformers to discuss the equality of women and men, challenging state laws after these prohibitions. 2 decades later, rights for women became a serious issue. The women who organized the convention participated in the abolitionist movement, which included Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucretia Mott, Mary McClintock, Martha Wright, and Jane Hunt. Stanton and Mott were the main organizers of the convention. Stanton was a leader in the women's rights movement, and Mott was a Quaker who was primarily recognized for her women's rights, anti-slavery, and religious reform advocacy. These women were influenced by the ongoing issues about women's place in society and their limitations. At the time, women lacked legal, political, and civil rights, such as the right to vote, limited property rights, especially married women, limited access to higher education and professional jobs, and subordination in marriage, church, and society.
Stanton and Mott met in London in 1840, where they attended the World Anti-Slavery Convention with their husbands. The convention did not allow women delegates, so both Stanton and Mott decided to organize the Women's Rights Convention. Stanton was displeased with her role of raising her kids and staying at home. This convincing Mott, Wright, and McClintock to assemble the Seneca Falls Convention. On July 16, 1848, the women met at McClintock's home where they discussed the convention and drafted the Declaration of Sentiments. Declarations were very common at the time because there were many abolitionist groups. The Declaration of Sentiments stated their grievances and resolutions. The Declaration of Sentiments was inspired by the Declaration of Independence, emphasizing that women are equal to men. It begins with the idea when people are treated unfairly, they have the right to demand a change. They wrote specific grievances directed towards the government and men, such as denying the women's right to vote, forcing women to obey the laws they had no voice in creating, taking away women's property and wages, and limiting women's moral, legal, and educational opportunities.
The women placed a notice of the convention on the Seneca County Courier, inviting people to attend. This went to show how urgent the organizers thought the problems were. On the days of July 19th and 20th, 1848, in the town of Seneca Falls, New York, most people worked their jobs in the early morning. But even some who had to work took the day off to attend the first Women's Rights Convention. At around 9 in the morning, a crowd of people gathered around the Wesleyan Chapel where the convention would take place. People from all over the town went to attend, some being Elizabeth friends and some others being members of the Quaker Church. At the 2-day convention, both men and women attended the convention. This led to more than 300 people attending. However, men that came to the convention were only accepted on the second day, meaning that there was a full day of only women. James Mott was directed to lead the convention, with Elizabeth being the first speaker. Not all the organizers were brave enough to speak, so Stanton and Lucretia Mott took turns speaking. One of the men who attended the convention was Frederick Douglass. Douglass was a former slave who participated in the anti-slavery movement and was one of the main men who supported the idea of a women's rights reform. He wrote a book speaking about his thoughts and opinions on the convention and idea, stating his views on the movement and why women should have the same rights as men. On the second day of the convention, the women discussed the resolutions, which were all passed unanimously except the women's right to vote, which was widely debated. It was later passed as the 19th Amendment in 1920.
People from all over the country who had heard about the convention had many reactions. A newspaper from Philadelphia stated that women had no rights other than being a wife and a mother.
Many editors mocked the idea of women demanding the right to vote, calling it unnatural and inappropriate. This showed how controversial women's equality was at the time. The Seneca Falls Convention led to more meetings like the Rochester's Women's Rights Convention, building a stronger network for the reform.
Society mocked women's rights more than any other reform. Frederick Douglass, who supported the convention, offered support to the reform. He argued that rights are natural and that women should be allowed to contribute to laws. He also stated that women were dignified and showed their character towards the movement. The organizers were shocked by the backlash, but they argued that they had souls large enough to feel the wrongs of others.
The Declaration of Sentiments not only established the reason for women's rights movement, but also later the basis of a forever lasting movement in relation to abolitionism. Pamphlets were published to spread the idea of women's rights, as it also served as an influence for the future equality reform and activism.
It inspired Elizabeth Stanton to continue further reforms, and it also inspired other women figures, such as Suzanne B. Anthony. The convention expanded the roles of women, increasing employment and educational opportunities and access to public offices.
The convention later focused on gaining the women's rights to vote, which later passed as the 19th Amendment in 1920. The Seneca Falls Convention influenced future reforms to have more inclusive ideas. It also helped normalize women's participation in public life.
Although immediate change was limited, its long-term impact reshaped American democracy by inspiring sustained activism. It marked a revolution in women's rights by publicly declaring gender equality through the Declaration of Sentiments. Despite facing intense social and political backlash, these reactions strengthened the movement and influenced lasting reforms.